The early morning mist coiled around the ancient redwoods of Northern California, a ghostly blanket muffling the forest floor. Sunlight, a rare visitor in this dense canopy, fought its way through, casting shimmering golden shafts that illuminated the suspended moisture in the air. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant call of a Steller's jay and the soft rhythmic crunch of damp leaves under Elias's worn hiking boots. Elias was a 35-year-old naturalist, his face a road map of time, his beard a testament to weeks spent in the wild, and his eyes holding the quiet wisdom of a man who had seen more wonders than most. His life's purpose was to document and protect the wilderness, and he was happiest when he was alone, a ghost in the natural world. Today, however, the air felt different. There was an undercurrent of urgency he couldn't place. He had been tracking a herd of Roosevelt elk, but an unfamiliar sound had pulled him off their trail. It was a low, mournful rumble, almost a whisper that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the forest. It was a sound he knew, but one he never expected to hear here. It was the sound of an elephant. The thought was preposterous. Elephants were native to Asia and Africa, not North America. Elias's logical mind told him it must be a captive animal that had escaped, but its presence in this remote, rugged wilderness was a mystery. He followed the sound, the low lament growing louder, more desperate. He emerged into a small clearing, and his breath hitched. There, in the center of the mossy space, was a full-grown female elephant. Her grey hide was caked with mud and leaves, and a dark stain on her front legs spoke of an injury. Her eyes, vast and sorrowful, were fixed on something just ahead. Elias followed her gaze, and a knot of dread tightened in his stomach. Not far from her, in a makeshift cage of rusted metal bars, was a young elephant calf, crying out for its mother. The enclosure looked hastily constructed and abandoned. The sight was gut-wrenching. The mother elephant was on the brink of despair, her entire body language a portrait of helplessness. Then, Elias noticed something even more extraordinary. High in the branches of a colossal redwood, a western lowland gorilla watched the scene below. Elias knew of this gorilla. Named Coco by local conservationists, he had escaped from a private collection years ago and had been roaming the forest ever since, a solitary phantom of the redwoods. He was a creature of immense intelligence and wariness, but his posture was now one of focused concern. The mother elephant, in her desperation, seemed to sense this. She glanced from her trapped calf to the gorilla in the tree, and then her gaze settled on Elias. She let out a low, pleading sound, a deep hum of a plea. Then she looked back up at the gorilla, a slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head. It was a silent conversation, a moment of profound, wordless communication between three creatures from different worlds, each understanding the other's despair and need. The story of how an elephant begged a gorilla for help to free her calf from illegal captivity, and the outcome stunned everyone, was just beginning. If you're captivated by this story, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next chapters. Remember, this story is entirely fictional. Elias, frozen in the clearing, watched the improbable tableau unfold. The mother elephant, a majestic and sorrowful giant, let out another guttural moan, her trunk reaching futilely toward her trapped calf. The calf, a miniature version of its mother, whimpered, its tiny trunk reaching through the bars. The gorilla, Coco, remained in the redwood, a dark, silent observer. His eyes, intelligent and knowing, seemed to be processing the entire situation. Elias knew he had to act, but his usual protocols felt irrelevant here. He was a man of science, of observation and documentation, but this was a situation that defied all logic. The gorilla, to Elias's astonishment, began to descend the tree. His movements were fluid and powerful, a testament to his strength and agility. He didn't approach the elephants directly. Instead, he moved along the perimeter of the clearing, keeping a safe distance, but his attention never wavered. He stopped at the edge of the clearing, examining the makeshift cage. The cage was a crude affair, built from thick metal bars welded together. It was heavy, and the door was secured with a rusty padlock. A faint scent of human presence still lingered in the air, a scent Elias recognized as neglect and desperation. The mother elephant, sensing the gorilla's proximity, shuffled her weight nervously, but did not move away. Her eyes, still filled with tears of dust and despair, followed Coco's every move. It was as if she understood that he was a potential ally, a final hope. Coco, for his part, was a silent strategist. He circled the cage, his massive hands occasionally touching the bars, testing their strength. He seemed to be looking for a weakness, a way in. Elias knew he had to be careful. Approaching the animals directly might startle them and cause the already panicked mother elephant to become aggressive. He slowly and deliberately backed away, finding a spot behind a large fallen log where he could observe without being seen. He pulled out his satellite phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed a familiar number. It was the number for Dr. Anya Sharma, a renowned primatologist and Elias's longtime colleague. She had worked with Coco before his escape and understood the gorilla's unique intelligence better than anyone. "Anya, it's Elias," he said, his voice a strained whisper. "You're not going to believe this. I've found Coco." There was a pause on the other end of the line, but that's not all. There's an elephant here, a mother and her calf. The calf is trapped in a cage and, well, the mother is pleading with Coco for help. "It's a miracle, Anya. A wild gorilla is being asked to save an elephant." Anya's voice, usually calm and composed, was filled with a mixture of disbelief and awe. "Elias, are you sure? Coco is extremely cautious. He wouldn't just approach another animal like that. Something extraordinary must be happening." "It is," Elias confirmed, watching as Coco, with a huff of concentration, began to prod at the base of the cage. "I'm telling you, it's a silent alliance. They're communicating in a way I've never seen before. We need to get help here, Anya. We need to free that calf, and we need to do it before whoever left them here comes back." The sun was now fully risen, its rays finally warming the cold forest air. The stage was set, not for a confrontation, but for a collaboration between a man of science, a desperate elephant, and a compassionate gorilla. The rescue mission, a testament to the power of instinct and empathy, had officially begun. The call to Anya had set in motion a frantic yet meticulously planned rescue operation. As Elias waited for her team to arrive, he continued to observe Coco's actions. The gorilla had abandoned his brute force attempts on the cage and had now moved to a more strategic approach. He was using a thick, gnarled branch he had broken off a fallen tree, testing the integrity of the ground around the cage. He seemed to understand that the cage was not only secured by a padlock, but was also heavy and difficult to move. The mother elephant, whose name Elias had instinctively decided was Kyla, watched Coco with a gaze that was a mixture of hope and exhaustion. She would occasionally let out a soft rumble, a low-frequency sound that Elias knew was a form of communication between elephants. It was a comforting, reassuring sound, as if she were talking to her calf, a promise that help was on the way. The calf, in turn, would respond with a high-pitched squeak, its ears flapping in a nervous flutter. Elias's plan, formed on the fly, was simple in its complexity. Anya and her team would bring specialized tools to cut the padlock and move the cage. But they had to do it without spooking the animals. Elias knew that if Carla felt threatened, she would become aggressive, and Coco, in his protective nature, might see the humans as a danger. The key was to make them both understand that the humans were there to help, not to harm. The solution, he realized, was for him to act as the bridge. He had spent years in the wilderness, learning to read the subtle cues of wild animals. He knew that calm, deliberate movements and a non-threatening posture could communicate his intentions. He would be the point of contact, the one to approach Carla and, by extension, the cage, with the tools. As if on cue, a series of distant thuds echoed through the forest. It was Anya's team. Two jeeps, their tires struggling with the rough terrain, emerged from the tree line. Anya, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor and a kind smile, was the first to step out. She was accompanied by two other team members, a veterinarian named Dr. Lee and a wildlife officer named Marcus. They carried equipment bags and a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters. Anya approached Elias, her face a mask of concern. "Elias, this is unprecedented. Coco is right there. We have to be incredibly careful." Elias nodded, his eyes fixed on the gorilla. "I know. My idea is this. I'll go in first. I'll approach Carla and the calf slowly. I'll show her the tools. She needs to see that we're trying to help. Coco will be our guide. He's been watching us. He knows we're here. We just need to show him we're not a threat." Anya, after a moment of deliberation, agreed. "It's a huge risk, Elias, but it's our only shot. We'll stay back, ready to move in if you give us the signal. Let's do this." Elias took the bolt cutters from Marcus, their cold weight a stark contrast to the warmth of the humid air. He took a deep breath, and with a silent nod to Anya, he began to walk toward the clearing. His steps were slow, deliberate, and his gaze was fixed on Carla. He spoke to her in a low, gentle voice, a steady stream of soft words that were meant to convey peace, not dominance. "It's okay, girl. We're here to help. We're going to get your baby out." Carla's ears, which had been pressed close to her head in distress, began to relax. Her mournful rumbles became softer, more curious. She watched Elias, a mix of wariness and hope in her eyes, and in the tree, Coco, the silent guardian of the forest, shifted his weight. He was watching. The plan, born of desperation and trust, was now in motion. If you're enjoying this thrilling tale, please subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And don't forget, this story is a work of fiction. Elias's slow, deliberate advance felt like an eternity. With each step, the distance between him and Carla felt less like an empty space and more like a bridge of trust he was meticulously constructing. He held the bolt cutters in one hand, not hidden, but not brandished either. It was a tool, and he wanted her to understand its purpose. He spoke to her constantly, his voice a soft, low hum, a melody of reassurance. "It's okay, Carla. We're on your side. We're going to help your little one." Carla's response was a revelation. Instead of charging or retreating, she stood her ground, her gaze fixed on him. Her posture was tense but not aggressive. She was waiting, evaluating. The trust she had placed in Coco seemed to have extended to Elias, a testament to the primal, unspoken language of shared purpose. She even nudged her trunk toward the cage, as if pointing to the problem. Elias knelt about 15 feet away from the cage, a safe distance. He set the bolt cutters down gently on the ground, a symbolic gesture of peace. He then sat down on the damp earth, crossing his legs, making himself as small and non-threatening as possible. He simply sat there, breathing slowly, watching her. This was the delicate dance of trust. He was giving her time, space, and a choice. The gorilla, Coco, had now moved from his perch and was on the ground. He was still keeping his distance, but he was closer than before. He was watching Elias and Carla, his powerful form a silent protector. It was as if he was waiting for Elias to make a mistake, to show his true intentions. Elias knew that one wrong move could unravel everything. Dr. Anya Sharma, observing from a distance with her binoculars, was relaying instructions to Dr. Lee and Marcus. "Stay calm, wait for his signal, do not make any sudden movements." She was amazed by the scene. A man, an elephant, and a gorilla, all connected by a shared mission, a shared empathy. It was a moment of profound beauty and a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of all life. After what felt like an hour, Carla took a step forward, then another. She was approaching Elias, her massive body a gentle mountain. She stopped a few feet away, her trunk reaching out, her sense of smell the most powerful tool in her arsenal. Elias remained still, his breathing shallow, his heart pounding in his chest. Her trunk touched his outstretched hand, a soft, leathery brush. It was a moment of connection, a silent agreement. She then moved to the bolt cutters, nudging them with her trunk. It was a clear signal. She understood their purpose, and she was ready for him to act. Elias, with a surge of adrenaline, stood up slowly. He picked up the bolt cutters, and with a confident look at Carla, he started to walk toward the cage. Coco, seeing this, moved as well. He did not approach the cage, but he positioned himself on the other side of the clearing, his powerful presence a silent promise of protection. He was not a threat, but a guardian. Elias was no longer a lone human in the forest. He was part of a team, an unlikely alliance forged in the fire of compassion. The time for action had come. With Kayla's silent approval and Coco's watchful presence, Elias approached the cage. The air crackled with tension and anticipation. The calf, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, stopped its frantic cries and watched him with wide, hopeful eyes. Elias saw the padlock on the cage door. It was thick, rusted, and looked almost impossible to break. He knew the bolt cutters were his only chance, and he had to make it quick. Dr. Lee, the veterinarian, had a tranquilizer dart ready, a last resort safety measure, but everyone was hoping it wouldn't be needed. Anya, Marcus, and the rest of the team remained hidden behind the tree line, their eyes fixed on Elias, ready to move at his signal. The entire forest seemed to hold its breath. Elias positioned the bolt cutters around the thick shackle of the padlock. The metal was old and stubborn, but the tool was designed for this kind of work. With a grunt of effort, he squeezed the handles. The cutters bit into the metal, a terrible groaning sound echoing through the clearing. The padlock resisted, and Elias knew he would need a second, more forceful attempt. Kayla, startled by the sound, let out a low, rumbling bellow. But it was not a bellow of aggression. It was a sound of fear and impatience. She wanted her baby back, and the delay was agonizing. She took a step toward Elias, her massive foot shaking the ground. At that moment, Coco let out a single, sharp hoot. It was a sound that commanded attention, a sound of authority. Kyla, recognizing the sound, stopped and looked at the gorilla. It was a silent message, a reminder to be patient, to trust the process. The communication between them was so subtle, so profound, that it was almost unbelievable. Elias, taking advantage of the moment, squeezed the bolt cutters with all his might. The metal shrieked and groaned, and then, with a sharp cracking sound, the padlock snapped. The two halves fell to the ground with a dull thud. The relief was palpable. Elias, without a moment's hesitation, reached for the cage door. It was heavy, but he managed to pull it open. The calf, with a squeal of joy, stumbled out of the cage, its tiny legs wobbly. It rushed to its mother, and Kayla, with a sound of pure, unadulterated relief, wrapped her trunk around her baby, pulling it into a fierce, protective embrace. The reunion was a moment of profound beauty. Carla nuzzled her calf, her deep rumbles now a song of pure love and happiness. The calf, safe in its mother's arms, squealed in delight, its small trunk waving in the air. Elias, watching this, felt a tear run down his cheek. He had been a silent observer, a facilitator, but he felt a deep sense of connection to this family. He had witnessed a moment of pure, raw love, a moment that transcended species and language. And Coco, from the other side of the clearing, hooted once more. This time, it was a sound of triumph, a sound of success. He was a silent hero, a part of this improbable rescue. The three of them, Elias, Kayla, and Coco, had done the impossible. They had freed the calf, a small victory against a world that had forgotten them. But the story was far from over. The relief of the reunion was short-lived. As Kayla and her calf began to move away from the clearing, a new and unsettling sound echoed through the forest, the distant rumble of a truck engine. The sound was growing closer, and it was a sound that did not belong in this part of the wilderness. Elias's blood ran cold. He knew what this meant. The captors, the illegal poachers who had taken the calf, were returning. The makeshift cage, now a broken symbol of their failure, would be the first thing they saw. Elias, Anya, and the team had to act fast. They couldn't just leave Carla and her calf to fend for themselves. Anya's voice, relayed through Elias's earpiece, was urgent. "Elias, we're tracking them. 2 men in a large, unmarked pickup truck. They're heavily armed. We need to get out of here. We can't risk a confrontation." But Elias couldn't just run. He looked at Kayla and her calf, now moving slowly through the dense undergrowth. Carla's injured leg was slowing her down, making them easy targets. And Coco, the silent protector, was still in the clearing, watching the road, a powerful dark silhouette against the morning light. Anya's voice returned. "Elias, Coco is moving. He's heading toward the road. What is he doing?" Elias, following Anya's gaze, saw the gorilla moving with purpose. Coco was not running away. He was running toward the sound. He was putting himself in the path of the approaching danger, a self-sacrificial act of a true guardian. "He's creating a diversion," Elias said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and terror. "He's going to lead them away. We need to use this time to get Carla and her calf to safety." Anya, recognizing the gravity of the situation, immediately agreed. "Dr. Lee, with me. Marcus, you and Elias need to get the elephants moving. Follow the creek bed. It will mask their scent and tracks. The poachers will be distracted by Coco." Elias, with a new sense of urgency, began to move toward Carla. He had to get her and her calf to a safe place. He moved quickly, but with a cautious grace, trying not to spook them. Carla, sensing his intentions, trumpeted softly. It was a sound of trust, a sign that she understood his need to guide them. As the roar of the truck grew closer, Coco disappeared into the thick foliage near the road. The truck, a battered Ford F-150, pulled to a stop at the edge of the clearing. 2 men, their faces grim and their expressions menacing, jumped out. They saw the broken cage and their faces twisted in fury. One of the men, a burly figure with a shotgun slung over his shoulder, let out a curse. "The damn thing's gone. Someone freed it." The other man, skinnier and more wiry, looked around nervously. "What about the big one? Did we scare it off?" Their attention, however, was quickly diverted. From the tree line, a series of crashing sounds and guttural hoots echoed through the air. Coco was making his presence known. He was not just a protector, he was a warrior. The poachers, startled and confused, turned their attention toward the sounds. Elias knew this was their chance. He had to lead Carla and her calf away, and they had to do it now, while the poachers were focused on the silent guardian of the redwoods. With Coco creating a powerful diversion, Elias and Marcus began the difficult task of guiding Kayla and her calf away from the poachers. The creek bed was a natural path, but it was also uneven and slippery, a challenge for a mother elephant with an injured leg. Kayla, however, was determined. The fear of losing her calf again gave her a strength that transcended her pain. Elias, walking ahead, used his knowledge of the terrain to find the easiest path. Marcus followed behind, keeping a watchful eye on the elephants and listening for any sign of the poachers. Dr. Anya Sharma and Dr. Lee were at the main road, ready to act as a distraction and to intercept the poachers if they tried to follow. The sounds of Coco's diversion were still echoing through the forest, a series of hooting, chest-pounding and crashing branches. The poachers, intimidated and confused, were still focused on him. It was a testament to Coco's intelligence and bravery. He was not a fool rushing into a dangerous situation. He was a master strategist, using his strength and the intimidation of his species to protect others. As they moved deeper into the forest, Elias noticed Kayla's injury was getting worse. The dark stain on her leg had spread, and she was limping more noticeably. The pain was etched on her face, but her eyes were fixed on her calf, a powerful symbol of a mother's love. Elias knew they had to find a safe place for her to rest, a place where Dr. Lee could tend to her wound. He signaled to Marcus, pointing to a small, hidden cave he knew of, a natural formation in a secluded part of the forest. It was a perfect hiding spot, protected from the elements and difficult to find. Marcus nodded in understanding. They began to gently guide Carla toward the cave, using soft, encouraging words. Carla, exhausted but still protective, entered the cave slowly, her calf following close behind. The cave was small, but large enough for the two of them to be safe. Elias and Marcus waited at the entrance, keeping a silent vigil. The sounds of Coco's diversion had now faded. They were replaced by the distant shouts of the poachers, their voices filled with frustration and anger. Elias knew Coco was likely safe, having led the men on a wild goose chase and then disappearing into the dense forest, a ghost in his own kingdom. But the danger was not over. The poachers knew they were close, and they would be back. Elias radioed Anya. "We've got them in a cave. Carla's leg is worse. We need Dr. Lee to come and help." Anya's voice was tense. "We can't. The poachers are still on the main road and they've got dogs. We need to keep them distracted. You and Marcus are on your own for now. You have to keep them safe. We'll find a way to get to you." The news was a gut punch. Elias and Marcus were now the sole protectors of the elephants, with two heavily armed men and their dogs hunting them. The stakes had never been higher. Elias looked at Marcus, and Marcus, a veteran wildlife officer, simply nodded. "We'll hold them off," he said, his voice firm. "We're not going to let them get these elephants back." The race against time had just begun, and the fate of Kayla and her calf rested on the shoulders of two men and the courage of a gorilla. The poachers' dogs were a new threat, their barks growing closer. Elias and Marcus took positions at the cave entrance, their goal to stall, not fight. When the first dog charged, Elias used pepper spray, and Marcus used a noisemaker, a small air horn. The dogs retreated. The poachers emerged, guns in hand, furious. "That's our property!" the leader yelled. Elias and Marcus stood their ground, asserting that the animals were under their protection. Just then, a series of hoots came from the trees behind the poachers. Coco had returned, his presence a powerful psychological weapon. Elias seized the moment, shouting that the authorities were on their way. The poachers, seeing the determined men and hearing the gorilla, turned and ran. The elephants were safe for now. With the poachers gone, a deep quiet returned. Elias and Marcus went back to the cave, where Carla and her calf were nestled. Anya and Dr. Lee soon arrived. Dr. Lee, a gentle and knowledgeable veterinarian, immediately began treating Kayla's leg. The wound was a deep, infected cut, likely from a snare. Anya praised Elias and Coco, calling the gorilla a force of nature for leading the poachers on a long chase. Elias agreed, calling Coco a guardian of this forest. The team realized the non-native elephants needed a permanent, safe home. Anya began making calls to the best sanctuaries. As the sun set, Coco appeared on a rock ledge, hooting a low, gentle farewell. He had completed his vital role and was returning to his forest. The story of the elephant, gorilla, and naturalist was not just about a rescue. It was about empathy and an unlikely alliance. It was a testament to love and courage, proving that hope can always find a way. 2 weeks later, Kayla and her calf were at the Gentle Giant's Elephant Sanctuary in Tennessee. Elias, no longer covered in mud, watched them thrive. Carla's leg had healed beautifully, and her calf was happily playing. The poachers had been arrested, and the illegal animal trade was exposed. Anya and Elias stood at the fence, reflecting on the journey. "It's a new beginning, Anya," Elias said. "It taught me that the most important lessons are in the quiet moments, in the unspoken language of the heart." The story had gone viral, a powerful symbol of hope. Coco had returned to his home, but Elias and Anya had set up a wildlife camera to keep an eye on him. The final scene was simple. A man, a woman, an elephant, and a calf, all part of an unexpected family. The outcome had stunned everyone, a reminder that empathy, alliance, and a mother's love can triumph over despair.